preparation that I am going to restore for you using the double garrison band method. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to choose my bands, and since this is a premolar, I'm going to use these premolar bands. You might consider maybe using a molar band on the distal one, since that's a little bit wider contact with a molar. But I think that this is going to work just fine. So you'd want to put these in here and kind of retain them with a wedge. Now I think sometimes we're really quick to just get this in there and be done, but I think it's really important at this point to kind of take a minute. And there's a couple things you can do. You can take a really good look down here and see if this wedge is really closing up all the gaps between the margin, the gingival margin, and your adjacent tooth. Now, if you can see any kind of daylight through there, I would be wary, because that means you are more likely to have a little bit of a gingival overhang. So sometimes if I see or suspect a spot like that, so what I'll do is I'll just switch to the lingual. There's something about just coming at it from a different direction that sometimes all of a sudden that space is gone. And I actually think it's doing a better job now. I can't really get my Explorer down there where I could before. This side's looking pretty good. So whatever you need to do to close up those gaps, this is the time to do it. This is also a good time, if you choose, to burnish. And so if I do this, I want something maybe round. Maybe I'll use a spoon excavator. I think this will do the trick too. But I really just want to do it kind of at the base, because at this point with a practical, all you've done is broken contact. You haven't dropped your floor too far below the contact area. And so you really just want to reestablish a contact right above it. You don't want it up at the top. You want it right there at your gingival floor, or just a little bit above it, because that's where it was to start with. So you can take a little bit of time to do that. And really the main reason I wanted to do this was to show you the whole stacking thing with the garrison bands. So what you'll do is you'll take your garrison band, you'll start with the blue one, and you'll open it up and you'll place it first on your band like that, okay? And then you'll take the orange one, and it's taller, so it can handle being on the top and reach all the way down and still have, I'm having a hard time because this really isn't meant for these. It's a rubber dam clamp forceps, but we're gonna make it work. So I've got my bands stacked, and this is again another point where you need to come in here and decide if you're happy with what you see. And so at this point, I can see that I've got a bit of a gap right here. And so what you can do, I kind of wish I had a flat instrument right now, but you can come in and kind of close that area up. I've even seen videos or pictures of people who will come in here and you could stuff Teflon tape just to kind of go down into that cave and close up that gap. Just enough tape to get a better contour so you don't have a ton of excess in there. I've also seen pictures where people have taken, it's kind of like a blue blockout composite that we use for other things, usually in fixed, but they'll squirt it down in there and cure it, and then it will close up little gaps like that. But don't be afraid to come in here with an instrument and almost kind of burnish from the outside in to get this to have the shape that you want. And then try not to put a lot of pressure back in that area when you're placing the composite, because you might run into problems with that as well. So I think this is looking good. I'm not seeing any crazy gaps down at my gingival floor. And so at this point, I'd be ready to restore. And you would want to clinically etch your preparation and then rinse away. And then you'll do your All Bond 3 with your A and B primers first, and then a cure, and then your resin adhesive and a cure. If you're in the clinic, you would place OptiBond Solo Plus and thin it and cure. And so at this point, we can go ahead and place our composite. So I like to start by just filling the boxes, that 2 millimeter increment. I do like this instrument a lot. I like that it has a smaller nib that I can pack down into a box. And then I got a little carried away over here. So if you place too much, don't just be like, oh, that's okay, I'll just make it one less step. Go ahead and pull it away. You've got plenty of composite to work with. But I'm really gonna pack down into those corners. You can do a little bit on the floor. All right, and then, oh, I forgot to get my curing light. Cure it, and once it's cured, you can come back and place another layer. You don't want more than 2 millimeters. But at this point, it's a premolar, and this wasn't a very big prep. So I'm feeling good about just getting another layer in there. Your pulpal floor is not gonna be any more than 2 millimeters anyway, right? So just kind of condensing down into my preparation. I always want to make sure I give it a little 45-degree up at those margins, especially in the box on the facial and the lingual. And so again, I like this one. I like the ball because you can just kind of run it across like that and start to get even a little bit of a hint of a fossa. There's some smaller ball instruments that I'll use to do this as well. I don't have a full set sitting here with me right now, or I would switch. One thing that I always do is I'll come in and I kind of start midway so I don't get carried away, but I'll do this little 45-degree clean out. You can kind of keep an eye on the tooth adjacent so that you're creating a very similar kind of embrasure shape. But what's really nice is once I get onto tooth structure, I can just clean away all of that excess that is normally so frustrating to deal with when I'm trying to finish this up. So again, I'm gonna come in kind of at the center. I don't wanna pull away the composite from the other side quite so much. And at this point, you know, if you mess up, just kind of tuck it back in there. Maybe pick this guy back up. You've got some excess to work with, so you can kind of push that out to the side and create a little bit more of that nice little fossa area. And if you have a hint of it going, it's going to be a lot easier to work with when you start doing your burrs. Kind of sets the stage. So just want to kind of open up that occlusal embrasure, and then you can drag it onto the tooth structure and then just clean it up. So that's how I kind of get things started with my composites, just to get the material in there and to kind of get it set up and cleaned up so that when I take these bands off, there's not a ton of work to do. I will come back into the occlusal embrasures. I will drop any margins that are too high. I'm obviously going to check for any kind of overhangs in the proximal area, and then I'll spend a little bit of time cleaning up the fossa and the central groove and polishing those. So I'm going to stop for now and cure this, and then I'll come back and show you how I take the bands off and then finish this up.